Hello and happy Friday. It's Friday, it's Friday, it's Friday. Do you have a Friday song? Apparently that's mine. Happy Friday and welcome to my Friday Live where I throw out lots of adoption golden nuggets that you can take from. Happy National Adoption Awareness Month, which is a month for us to share voices, make sure all voices are heard from the adoption constellation so that you can learn from everyone, which will result in you becoming the best parent that you can be. November 9th is World Adoption Day, and that is a day that was started just a couple years ago where people draw a smiley face on their hand to represent adoption and then take a selfie. So happy National Adoption Awareness Month. I want to challenge you to be following a member, at least one person from each part of the adoption constellation. Are you following adoptees? Are you following birth parents? Are you following other adoptive parents? Are you following people who have adopted transracially or same sex or single? Make sure that whatever might speak to you, you are following somebody of that voice, but especially somebody from each part of the adoption triad or constellation, as I like to call it. Are you? I'm curious. Who are some of your favorites that you follow? Let me know. I might not know about them, and I'd love to follow them too. So this month, we will be sharing all sorts of stories and blogs that we have either shared before or that others are sharing. We no longer do our blog series, but we will be pulling from the best of all these other people who have been posting wonderful tidbits and sharing them with you. So if you have any favorites, please do tag us or shoot them our way. We would love to learn from them and share them as well. Okay, a couple things that have come up over the last couple of weeks. Man, I have been out of town and we had a busy October, which is fantastic to see things picking up again. We had 11 adoptions in October. Amazing. 11 adoptions. I have this match board and I got some white space on it now. So we actually did have 2, I think, matches this week. I'm hearing something. I hope my Akila, my dog might be ripping something apart downstairs. Oh, that's never good. Anywho, so we actually have created some room on our list. We are open for inquiries and taking new families, which is fantastic. Our consultants have some room now. So that's awesome. We'd love to talk to you. So some other things that have come up, judgments and microaggressions in adoption. There's a lot of that. It tends to be a pretty judgy industry, which sucks. We actually had an Indian woman and a client of ours who is Indian call an agency who just automatically assumed she was adopting internationally. That was kind of icky. They didn't even ask. They just assumed she wanted to adopt internationally. And then when they found out she was a single woman, they said, oh, you won't be able to adopt for 5 years. Has anyone else had any microaggressions or any biases or any judgments or anything like that as you have been going through your adoption journey? I would love to hear about it. I don't know. I'm all about calling people out on it if you feel comfortable. Yeah. I think that there's just still so much learning to do in this industry, both by professionals as well as from everybody. And there are the people who still know that they have a lot to learn, and there's others who think they know it all and are very quick to judge others. And it's too bad. It's too bad. And I guess it's for you to kind of navigate and figure out who you want to work with based on some of those things. So if you have experienced any of that, I would love to hear what your experiences are if you are willing to share. So that's something that we have seen. And I want to talk a little bit about the price of adoption. We'll start there. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the best way to turn down an adoption situation. Hello, Jake. And yeah, let me start with the price of adoption. They're going up, which just is awful. So we are now starting to see a much wider range in the cost of adoption, depending on which states you're adopting from. So unfortunately, Florida and some other states, I can't even think, but Florida pops to my mind right away. Cost of living in Florida and for hotels is skyrocketed. It's really expensive. I mean, at the very least, $500 a week, I don't know. And I don't even know if I'm quoting that right, but it's really expensive. And it's driving the cost of expectant mom expenses up really high. It is very normal for us these days to see birth mother expenses or expectant mom expenses in the 20s, $20,000 range, which is really high, driving costs of adoption into the 60,000s. So whereas before we would say the norm would be 45 to 55 all in, and I still think it's possible, it's more becoming 50 to 60, 55 to 65. And that drives a lot of people out. There are definitely still places that fall between that $40,000 to $50,000 mark. It just depends on the cost of living in that state and what the situation is with the expectant mom. So I think that the range of costs has really spread a lot wider than it has been in years past. I don't know if it's going to stay like that or if it's going to, equal out at some point. I was challenging or really just asking the question of one of the Florida adoption agency directors, as I have before, that there must be something. Are there different resources for these women? And the answer that I got are, there are places that will house pregnant moms, but not if they're using drugs. And a lot of them will not house you if you already have children. And in a lot of these houses, the main focus is to help them keep their children. And some of these women have already made a decision otherwise and don't want to be in that situation. So those are some of the situations that they're going by. And then the agencies don't want to put them in these really unsafe places, and neither would you if you were matched with a woman who is potentially carrying your child. So the costs have really just skyrocketed, and it's all over the board. It's not just one or two. It used to be just one or two agencies where we were questioning them and thinking, well, we can't work with you anymore. But now we're just seeing more and more and more. I was at a conference where one consultant said she was seeing situations more in the 70s. Like the highest one she saw was 72, which is astronomical. The highest one I had seen was 68, which is also crazy. But all over the place. But, again, depending on what state you're in, Absolute Love Adoptions just said, excuse me, yes, there are plenty of resources Locally, for many of the expenses, food, utilities, clothing, etc., housing can be more difficult, but social workers should be resource brokering through the process for sustainable supports, not solely um, parent adopting parents throwing out money. I am with you. I'm with you, girl. But no, not but, and. So I guess the question is, are agencies just not resource brokering? Are they too lazy? Do they not have the staff to do it? Or are there really not a lot of resources depending on the area you live? I would love to, God, I would love to see this industry really pull together. The same woman I was talking to, I said, God, somebody just needs to build a housing for some of these women. And the problem is the huge liability, right? Especially if we're talking about a lot of women who are using. I don't know. What have you found? Absolute Love Adoptions. What have you found? I'm curious. Okay, another one. Oh, let's see. Families can ask their agency worker to put pressure on them to resource broker more effectively. It's time consuming, which is my thought on why it's avoided. And I don't know if it's always avoided or if it is being avoided. Like I said, sometimes it's just that, yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. You're absolutely right. And if it's not with housing, there are other things, right? Food, clothing, toiletries, their basic needs. That stuff can be donated, and there are resources for that. So if not with housing, there are with other things. Housing can turn into maternity homes where there's pressure to place in isolation from organic supports. Not ideal, unfortunately. Thanks so much for that input. I appreciate it. So anyways, talking about the cost of adoption going up so high, there has been talk about why wouldn't parents turn to surrogacy instead? The cost of surrogacy, I have heard, can range anywhere from 60 to 100,000. And some would argue it's more of a sure thing. Others would argue not necessarily. Going back to the resources, I once referred a mom to 24 community resources because our state cannot pay for expenses. Oof. Did she find any that helped? Holy cow. I appreciate people like you. What was I saying? Oh, surrogacy. So are people turning to surrogacy more now or thinking about it more because the cost of adoption is raising so high and it's getting to the point where it's equal? It's equal. I mean, there's definitely challenges with both, but I think it's a fair question. Yeah, it's a fair question. And if surrogacy is something you're thinking about, there are places like consultants for people who are going the surrogacy route. Oh, that's good, Catherine. That's awesome. So many supports that she still uses a year later, and I think that's a great thing. Also, is putting resources in place where they can continue to get the support well after they place. So good on you. Thank you for what you do. So the question of cost, the question of resources, surrogacy, it's definitely all things to think about. Finally, I want to end with talking about how to turn down a situation. If you are presented a situation through an agency or an attorney or what have you, and you don't feel like it's the right situation for you, first of all, that is okay. That is definitely okay to turn down a situation. However, the best way to do it is, thank you. Thank you so much for considering us for this situation, and you're sending it to us. I'm saying us. I'm assuming in this role play that it's a couple. Thank you so much for sharing this situation with us. We always appreciate receiving them. We have discussed it and looked through it thoroughly and don't think it's a good fit for us at this time. We are not comfortable with, and give some reasons. We are not comfortable with the mix of drugs that she's using. We are not comfortable with her bipolar diagnosis. We don't feel like we're capable of handling that. We have we've done a lot of soul searching, and we've changed our mind about what races we're open to. We don't think we're well equipped to adopt a child who is African American, so we would like to change our preferences. Whatever it is, whatever your reasonings are, give them some reasons so that they know better for next time. And that you're not just that client who keeps saying no. If you keep just turning down and saying no, they might stop forwarding you situations. And by the way, if you give reasons, if you told them you're open to X, Y, and Z, and they send you a situation that is within what you said you were open to, and you keep saying no, and you keep giving reasons, they're going to question if you're really, truly ready to adopt. So you really want to be honest and open and give feedback along the way to the people on your team who you are working with. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Again, if there are people you are following for National Adoption Awareness Month, if there are good blogs you've read, articles, good voices that you're following, please share them with us so that we can then share them with more people. The whole point of this month is awareness and education and talking about all the layers. And the more informed we are, the better parents we will be, the better advocates we will be for adoption. So let's just continue to educate ourselves and others and promote all the voices. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Friday. Stay on your adoption roadmap, and if you veer off, that's okay. Get right back on. Bye.